Here we go. Pretty much off the cuff, every way I would choose a 6th generation ZL1 over the 7th generation Z06. 7th generation Corvette was actually really cool. I was gonna buy one. Those of you that have subscribed, been to my channel for a long time, know when I was gonna buy my orange car, OJ, I actually knew that that was my last chance to buy, brand new off the lot, a manual, I believe it was a Sebring orange, could have been, I can't remember. And memories getting lost. A lot of ZL1 and less Corvette. It's a good thing. Looking back on it, I'm actually kind of happy that it did. There's a lot of Corvette owners that I see here that really get in their feelings, and it's kind of a mixed bag of as far as like owners of that club. We've all met them, we all know them. I've kind of compiled a list of every reason that, well, I know I've made the right decision by choosing Camaro as opposed to Corvette. I experienced this for myself. On the lot, hand to hand, these are cheaper. Now, used prices, a used price of any car really is how much you can get somebody to pay you for it. You can go off NADA, Kelley Blue Book, all the others online. Whatever somebody's willing to pay you for it, that's really the fair market value. When I was comparing my SS1LE versus a Grand Sport, which was a 2019 Grand Sport, that was actually tit for tat. Now, both of them were as high of a package as you could go, naturally aspirated. Both of them were manual, pretty much had about the same options. Actually, I got more in the Camaro for like, I think it was about $23,000 less. It's a lot, it's a lot. And as far as insurance goes, now, they say that I saved a little bit, but I'm not really sure because there's a lot of factors that go in insurance, like credit, cost of parts, availability, you know, how much do they get stolen, how many were produced. There's a lot. There's a big formula as far as kicking out estimate for your month to month. But from whatever I've gathered online, everybody says that the Camaro comes in a little bit cheaper. Being a single guy, the simple fact of having a back seat really doesn't affect me, but it all kind of goes back to the last one as being that we kind of all think that that back seat was added pretty much for insurance reasons because it's not really useful as far as like 75% of human beings walking the face of this earth. Love it, hate it, whatever. It's still kind of useful. Some days I look at it as a leather padded shelf to have back behind my seat, but Corvette also does have quite a bit of cargo space in the back. Camaro's just a little bit nicer. Now the next one I'm gonna get into is really subjective, but it being a transaxle in the back, having a torque tube in the engine in the front, it's really, and this has come from word of mouth of others as far as I've been told, Corvette is a pain in the ass to work on. It's horrible. There's no room. Now, right after the front of the engine, there is a little pocket of room, which they did give a lot of area to work with as far as like cold air intakes, accessory drives, yada yada, whatever. But the rest of it, nightmare. I've heard it's awful to work on these cars. There's a lot of tech. There's the packaging was real bad on them, especially once you get into the ass end of the car. If you look under the car, you can't even see, as far as like all the skid plates and everything covered, the bracing and everything, you can't even see the gas tank. And there's also kind of like a flip side to working on cars. There's always gonna be that Corvette tax that's always gonna follow you indefinitely. Parts for these cars are a lot more expensive across the board. They do have more options, but it's kind of seen or known as that upper echelon of car. So therefore, the Corvette tax, yeah, you guys are getting it, we're not. Expanding on the packaging as far as the way that everything is crammed and tucked and placed in these cars, more so for balance, but the Camaro wasn't bad. I mean, they tried to get a near 50-50 for the Corvette. I understand that, but the Camaro, the ZL1 came out pretty good actually. So the Camaro is metal and the Corvette is made out of SMC, which stands for, well, sheet molded compound, or I've seen it sheet molded composite. Take your pick, whatever, same thing. It's a continuation of fiberglass. Instead of having that acrylic resin, they've actually made it like a plasticized resin, which is a lot stronger. It's a lot better for impact, and it seems to age a lot better than just your standard fiberglass cloth and resin. But nonetheless, they're both still using a metal frame. Now, you can have bonding problems with the Corvette to the space age aero aluminum frame, whatever they want to call it. Nonetheless, I know a lot of people think, oh, it's a composite body, oh, it's a lot lighter, oh, it's a lot stronger. That's not the case. They're both using a metal frame. Now, the metal used that is in Camaro is a ferrous metal, which means nothing more than the presence of iron, but you actually do have a pretty good cocktail of alloys throughout the entire Alpha chassis. Over 4,500 spot welds holding the Alpha chassis together. I don't know how many are holding the Corvette together, but it seems to be when you start mixing composites and compounds and metals and alloys, unless you really have your engineering figured out, it's always kind of been a recipe for disaster in the long run. So time will tell how this car ages, but those of you that have had C1, C2, C3's Corvettes, you know what I'm talking about. Now that transaxle in the back, it seems to be that there was a little bit more tunability as far as just having a drive shaft be the missing link as far as connecting the engine to the powertrain, well, differential to send the power down and then split it out to the axles. The Corvette has a transaxle, it does have a torque tubes. Torque tubes do have their problems, and they do get expensive, a lot more expensive than a drive shaft. So I'm definitely sticking with the layout that the ZL1 has. Now, as far as marketing or any kind of coverage that Camaro 6 got, it was terrible. It was a terrible job by GM. So this is an overlay of Camaro 5, but it's still the same kind of layout. It's just a different engine, pretty much. Basically. That being that the transmission is connected to the engine, the Corvette got the 8-speed and the Camaro got the 10-speed. 10-speed was way better than the 8-speed ever thought about being. Everybody seems to love the gear spread of the 10-speed a lot better. And then when you flip over to the manual, I myself like the 6-speed better than the 7-speed. Now, a lot of people say the 7th gear is absolutely useless. It's so far out there, it doesn't even matter. Yeah, rolling gears is fun, but come on, 7 gears, where does it end, right? I think 6 is where I top out. When I grew up, I think I had a 1970 truck that was 3 on a tree. I remember 4 speeds. I remember when 5 speeds were predominant. Then we got 6 speeds, now it was 7. 7's, that's a little bit too much for me if you know what I'm talking about. This thing was huge. This was the pivotal point where I was like, okay, Camaro. Was the ground clearance. Now, if you look online, it shows the ground clearance is about the same, but Corvette with the really super long nose, it was a real pain in the ass as far as like getting into driveways and you had to be like hyper conscious with it. I mean, it's doable, but the Camaro was a lot easier car to drive, it was a lot more practical, it was physically, dimensionally smaller, and the Alpha chassis. The Alpha chassis, I mean, come on. The car handles like a freaking dream. And as a matter of fact, it handles just as good, might be better. I mean, it was around Willow Springs, right guys? The ZL1 never had any issues with cooling. The 2015-2016 Corvette, on the other hand, did. If you're looking to buy one, do not buy the shorter lid. The car gets exhausted. There's very minimal airflow that can get into the front of the car. This was a thing for a couple years. The 1.7 blower gets so hot so fast. Anyhow, the smaller cooling bricks, the shorter supercharger lid screws you over. And the simple fact of, physically you can't get enough air through the front end of that car. Yeah, I'm gonna go with ZL1 because ZL1 has massive cooling. When they made the ZL1, they absolutely took care of every problem like that. As a matter of fact, all I did was install a meth kit, and this car just goes, it just hangs in there. The supercharger doesn't overheat. I've never had any issues with it at all. The old adage is hindsight's 20/20, and that is so freaking true because I was at a point in time in my life where I could have stepped up to the Corvette, but I chose to stick with Camaro, and I'm so happy I did because it was such the better car. You guys know what to do. Like the video on the way out. I hope you guys are having an awesome day. Take care. Till the next one, I'll see you guys later.